So, good morning, Jake. Great to see you again in the essential space. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Pantheon, and we're going to talk a little bit about some trends that are happening in concrete around your territories and your team's territory and what's going on with your distributors. Jake, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out in the field.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a trend moving towards concrete. If you look at any of the new construction and a lot of the remodels, there's a trend to move towards concrete. So people are ripping up VCT tile, they're going to this concrete. It is a more of a maintenance-free type floor than they've been using in the past. So we are seeing that shift. And as far as what they're doing to this concrete, some things that we're seeing some people move towards the diamond polishing.
Can you explain that to us just a little bit more?
What that's doing is it's creating a smoother surface. You get higher gloss, and you do get a little bit of chemical resistance built in there because you're tightening the floor. You're effectively removing some of the porousness out of the surface. But then, especially in a grocery store, somebody busts a jar of pickles on the floor, you're going to be left with a stain there. So we do have some people who are using a densifier and guard program as well. So when they go into a fresh concrete floor, once it's fully cured, they'll polish it up to a certain grit level, whether that be a 400 grit, 800 grit, 1500 grit with these diamond pads. Then they'll apply a densifier. And what that does is it basically hardens the concrete. It makes it not as porous, so it fills in some of the pores, which also gives you a little bit of added durability and a little bit of added gloss. And then once that process is done, they'll go ahead and put a guard or a sealer down over top of that. That provides you your most powerful chemical resistance and durability. So that floor is going to stay looking really good the longest amount of time over all of the processes, whether you just diamond polish, whether you just use a densifier. Once you do those processes, if you throw a sealer on top of that in our minds, that's going to be the longest durability that you're going to get out of that floor.
So, in talking about using densifiers and sealers and polishing with the diamond pads, what are you doing to offer the customer some alternative, something that gives them a better result?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first things that you look at when you go into a customer, the broad overview of the process of polishing the floor, then densifying it, then sealing it. A lot of our customers just frankly don't have the budget for that. It's a very expensive, very timely process. So what Pantheon allows them to do is processes. You just clean up your concrete. You just clean it, degrease it if it has a bunch of spills and stains on it. If there is a coating on it now, you just strip that off. Once you're down to bare clean concrete, you can apply the Pantheon. We recommend 2 coats, and that's going to get you to your stain resistance. What it allows is it gives you a really good polished look on that floor without having to go through all of the diamond polishing steps and the densifying and all that entails. So you
Okay.
get this really good polished look with a sealer that's going to be extremely durable. So your maintenance is still going to be greatly reduced versus whatever you were doing previously, whether you were just polishing, whether you were putting a traditional floor finish on top. This is going to be a much better option, again, because the durability is much greater than a traditional floor finish, and you get the added benefit of stain resistance. So Pantheon stain resistant to we've tried everything from motor oil to brake fluid to kerosene to vinegar to coat. So really anything that could be spilled on this floor in an industrial or a commercial or a retail type environment, we've tried to get those things to penetrate through Pantheon, and it has done a beautiful job at resisting all of those. And actually, none of those have any type of effect on the sealer itself. There's no staining that penetrates, which again just kind of backs up and proves its durability.
So it sounds like a time saver. It also sounds like a product saver. So when you're talking about stain resistance and using Pantheon, when we're at a point where we need to redo the floor, what time frame are we looking at?
So just like any coating, whether we're talking about a traditional finish, whether we're talking about a concrete sealer like Pantheon, at some point that coating is going to get get wore down to the point to where we need to redo it in order to achieve the look that we want. It's really hard to pinpoint a time frame. There are a lot of variables, the type of traffic that you get on it, especially if you look at like grocery stores. When they're stocking their shelves at night, they're pulling pallet jacks with pallets that weigh thousands of pounds across the floor. You've got the shopping carts. People push those out in the parking lots. Little pieces of rock and pebbles get stuck in those wheels, and then they're dragging it back into the store. So there's all types of different traffic patterns that happen in these types of environments. I would say a really good rule of thumb is annually. You're
Okay.
going to want to do something annually. But there are ways, there are preventative maintenance steps that you can take to try to prolong and extend the life of that floor. So, for instance, as a daily cleaner, we recommend our blue concentrate. Keeping as much soil and debris off floor as much as you can is going to only prolong the life. Because again, as people walk over that, you've got hundreds of feet grinding this stuff into the floor every day. It just
Right.
acts like sandpaper on the coating. So blue concentrate to clean on a daily basis. And then you can burnish the Pantheon as well. If you want to burnish it, use something like a 3000 grit diamond pad. That is going to remove the scratches and improve the gloss and also restore the grip, which is something that is that's really pertinent when we're talking about like grocery store environments where you're prone to kind of these slip and fall incidents. Making sure that floor is as safe as possible is something that we definitely want to achieve. And those are a few steps that you can take to try to prolong the life.
My final question is the gloss. What type of shine or gloss do we get from the Pantheon?
So I like to call it a wet look. With Pantheon, you're not going to get the knock your eyes out gloss like we're used to with like a traditional floor finish. But the beauty of it is we're going to get a really good gloss, but traditional floor finish on concrete, and people who are really familiar with concrete floors will know this all too well. It tends to get really hazy, really cloudy looking. You can tell that there's a floor finish on the floor. Whereas with the Pantheon, we're going to get a good polished look. So when we put this down, it's going to give the look like you have polished the floor without having to go through those steps. Clarity of the coating is incredible. So really what it does is it enhances the color and the sheen of the concrete versus making it look really cloudy like with a traditional coating. So the gloss is good. Now if you need a really high gloss, you can polish the floor beforehand and then put your Pantheon down, and that's only going to enhance the gloss that you've done with the polishing beforehand.
Can we add on top of Pantheon something to enhance the gloss? Can we put our traditional floor products on there?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Pantheon acts as a really good bridge coat, as we like to call it. So it can be used as a standalone product, but if you want a higher gloss and you don't want to go through the polishing beforehand, you can put a traditional floor finish over the top of Pantheon. That's going to increase your gloss. It's not going to be quite as durable, so your maintenance is going to be a little more involved. But you also have the added benefit of having a stain resistant sealer underneath that finish. So if
Right.
something does spill on it, the staining isn't going to get down into the concrete. It's going to sit on top of that sealer. So that is an added benefit as well.
Fantastic. Jake, thank you so much. That's really good information. But as a consumer, I do see a lot more concrete out there. So I know it's definitely happening. It's a great place for us to turn our attention. And if anybody has any other questions that we haven't covered, or you want to ask us a new question about it, or have one of our reps come out and check out your space and see if our Pantheon can help, just leave us a message in LinkedIn and we will get back to you as quick as possible. And thanks so much, Jake, and stay safe out there and keep educating people on their concrete.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jake.
Thanks so much.